Well, so far we've had one speaker stand up, one sit down, and one go up there, so I feel like I should be like Phil Donahue and go in the audience. Hearing you, Jeff, brought back memories. I began my life as a journalist in Iran in 1979, shortly after the revolution that overthrew the Shah, and I returned actually during the hostage crisis in 1980, interviewed one of the people actually who was involved in it, and I think the main reason I went is because people in the United States, and I think as you were speaking to, have no idea what the impact of the United States is on countries around the world. They haven't heard people tell about how parents were tortured in front of their children and things like this by a secret service named SAVAK, trained by the United States. They didn't they didn't read the volumes of secret documents stitched together by the students holding the embassy, discussing what the United States was doing and so on. So I think this is one of the reasons I became a journalist, was to try to bring some of this to light to people in this country, and it continues to this day. I just read an article in the Associated Press. When Americans are asked how many U.S. casualties there have been in Iraq, they're very accurate, around 3,000. When they're asked how many Iraqi casualties there have been, they miss by a factor of 65. They estimate, 10,000 or something like this. Well, I'm sure most of you know that the latest estimate is 650,000, not to mention the 3.2 million driven from their homes. Just imagine if 6 million people in this country had been killed, 30 million driven from their homes. What a nightmare this is, and this is what the United States is doing in Iraq. And the other day is an excellent article by Peter Galbraith in this week's New York Review of Book. He quotes Bush as saying, "I just hope they show us enough gratitude for all we've done for them." This is the imperial, arrogant, and racist mindset that these people carry with them. The other thing by way of introduction, I wanted to say about Iran is I also come as someone who has seen the viciousness of the new regime up close. My friends were leftists and communists and Democrats and so on, and many of whom were killed actually by the regime. So I'm not a supporter of the Islamic Republic, but I don't think there cannot be a war. The United States would not go to war against Iran to bring anything better. Just like I was not a supporter of Saddam Hussein, but the U.S. has managed to make things 100 times worse for the people there. Any change of regime, any change of government has to be an act of the people, whether it be Iraq. Yeah. I think we have to make this clear, because it doesn't have to be support one government on one side means you oppose the other government or support the other government. No, we can support the people of the world. And this is an argument we have to make, which I think is essential to make clear. If the theater's on fire, it's your duty to scream it as loud as you possibly can, and I think not only the theater but the world is catching on fire. I think there's a very, very grave danger of war on Iran and war spreading through the region for years and years to come. And I have to agree, I'm glad Shervin brought up what he did about the continuing pressure and belligerency that's going on. And I'm very concerned, because I feel that even among those who oppose the war, there's not nearly enough urgency and anger, and not nearly enough understanding about just the depth of this threat and where it comes from. And I want to talk about this in three ways that I think if we work on these things, I think we can change the situation. The first thing is the level of military threats Gareth and Shervin talked about some of that. I just want to add that according to Seymour Hersh, a group's been put in place in the Pentagon, tasked with making an attack possible within 24 hours of an order by Bush. I've heard reports that while there are 2 aircraft carrier groups now, they're due to be replaced by 2 more. What happens when those 4 stay there for a duration? Hersh is also quoting military sources saying that an attack could come as early as the spring. He's also, the BBC has also reported not only are the war preparations at an advanced state, which let's not forget, this isn't 1 or 2 surgical strikes. This is 700 to 1,500 targets, not restricted to nuclear targets, but also including military infrastructure and no doubt leadership and so on. So this is a catastrophe in the making that we're talking about. The BBC also reports that the actual pretexts or triggers for war have already been decided on, either a large casualty, an attack in Iraq that could be blamed on Iran, and going back to what Gareth said, that's just a land version of a Gulf of Tonkin incident, or the claim that Iran has a nuclear capability, which let's understand that Bush makes clear what he means by that is not possession of a bomb, but knowledge with which to make a bomb, and how are you going to determine that? So these are very alarming developments. And on the diplomatic front, I do just want to, again, as Shervin correctly pointed out, the United States has never taken regime change off, refuses to engage in bilateral negotiations, Iran offered to negotiate with Cheney in May of 2003, including putting Israel, putting nuclear weapons and everything on the table, and Cheney refused. And I want to talk about why. So I see this as a very dangerous situation, and we've got to remember that, look, we can get into the complexities of this, of the exact way all this is unfolding, but diplomacy is also a component of war preparations. You do not go to war without attempting to portray your adversary as belligerent, as recalcitrant, intransigent, and so on, and try to be able to say we've gone the last mile for peace, as both Bush and his father did. But I think we can look at these different events and have different interpretations, but I think we have to see the bigger picture in order to understand why this is such a grave threat. And here I want to take a little different tack than Gareth and stress the differences between now and Vietnam. I mean, I think there's a lot to learn, but I see this as a very different situation than Vietnam. I see this as a time in which the people that run this country feel they have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create an unchallengeable empire. And on the negative side, that if they don't do this, they'll lose that chance forever, and the U.S. superpower status will slip down to second tier, and this society will crumble. And they have a legitimate argument from an imperialist point of view. In other words, I see this as a country that it's a global capitalist system. It depends on and functions on the basis of global reach. I mean, why does this country have 700 military bases, $5 trillion in overseas investment? We can make jokes about Halliburton moving to Qatar, but this is, or was it Dubai? I thought it was Dubai, to Dubai. But this shows the global reach of this system. It depends on the global exploitation of labor, resources, markets, and so on. And it cannot have the kind of favored access that it needs without geopolitical control of these regions. This is something you don't have to believe me, just read what the neocons and the neoliberals, I might add, have been saying since 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's something I document in my book.